Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Welcome to Job Fest. We're here live for you doing an interview mock setup, and we're super excited. So we have some questions prepared. I'm going to ask the other people. We're going to do a mock interview, and then we're going to get going. So we have three job interview contestants, and we're going to ask them questions. And then I want you guys to help me decide which person we should hire. So again, there's their mock interviews, and here we go. So the first person I have to ask a question to is Josh. And Josh, I want to ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself. Oh, I can't hear you, Josh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sweet. Okay. So what was the question again?
The question was, I just want you to tell me a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about me. So I have 3 kids that I spend a lot of my time with, super cool kids, you know, going through teenage years. So that's always fun and exciting, getting woke up in the middle of the night. I like scuba diving. I like tattoos. You can see I got tattoos. I like my tattoos and fishing. So it's something, and I think I'd be good to your organization because I'm well prepared, I'm organized, and I like working. I like money.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. So the next person I want to ask a question to is Frank. Frank, same question. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Frank. Just very, very experienced, with a lot of experience that I believe will bring, a lot of experience to your organization. Very smart, organized. And I just think that all of my education and experience will be a great experience to this position.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sounds like you have a lot of experience. So the next person I want to ask a question to is Daisy. Same question. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I have been working as an admin assistant for over 5 years. I have developed a strong skill set in data management. I have completed a number of training courses throughout the years as well. My position has allowed me to have great time management skills to help with scheduling meetings and staying on task. And I know that your company prioritizes the local community and giving back. And I would love to be a part of such a generous business. I think it's so awesome. And as a very organized individual, I think I could really make a difference here.
All right, great. Thank you. So it sounds like we have 3 different people, and I was just thinking maybe there could be some improvements. Like maybe for Josh, it looked like he had a very messy background. We don't want to have a messy background when we're doing an interview. Also, with Frank, it sounded like he meant well, but he kind of mentioned that he had experienced so many times that it was a little bit distracting. And then Daisy had a great answer. It was like thought out, well prepared. She explained, where she started and where she's at now. So let's get to another question. Let me think of the question. How about, this is a great one. Tell me about your biggest weakness. Let's ask Josh first. Josh, can you tell me your greatest weakness or biggest weakness, please?
So one of my biggest weakness that I think that I have is actually staying on task, but I am trying to fix it. So let me explain first. I don't like just doing one thing at once. I like to do a bunch of things. So I thought, but I actually don't. So I like just having one thing to do. I can just focus on that. I don't have any other distractions. There's no emails coming in, there's nothing else going on, just one thing that I have to do, and I can accomplish that.
Okay, thank you. Frank, same question. What is your biggest weakness?
Well, my biggest weakness is that I'm a perfectionist. I mean, I try to do everything perfect, and, sometimes it gets me, in trouble because I want it perfect, and it needs to be, things have to be done the right way. And I really believe that as a perfectionist, we gotta be, try to do it perfect as best we can.
Okay, thank you. Daisy, same question. Tell me about your biggest weakness.
I used to like to work on one project to its completion before starting on another one, but I've learned to work on many projects at the same time, and I think doing so allows me to be more creative and effective in each one.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like Daisy almost had the opposite answer of Josh, where Josh said that he likes to work on one project at a time with no emails, no phone calls, no distractions, which we know is probably impossible to have any job where you have no distractions at all. So that would be a red flag for me as a employer, that if he can only do one task at a time, that's probably not going to be a good fit. Now, Frank's answer was that he's a perfectionist, which is kind of like a typical answer where you wouldn't want, it's usually not a very truthful feeling answer, because usually there's always at least one weakness that somebody has besides that they're just too perfect. And then Daisy's answer was really good, that she tends to like to do one project at a time, but she fixed it by saying that she's learned how to multitask and do multiple projects at one time, and it's allowed for more creativity. So I feel like in this case, round 2, Daisy kind of took it. And so let's get to round 3, which is, I feel, the most difficult question to ask. So Josh, tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker, and how did you handle it?
I've never had a conflict with anybody.
So you're saying that you never had a conflict with somebody in all of your years of employment?
I mean, I guess, yeah, like one time I remember a coworker of mine, she was always late, drove me nuts. I like to be, a couple minutes early, 2-3 minutes early to clock in, just showing up on time. I'm supposed to start at 8, I'll be there at 8, but it's 8:02, 8:03, and she finally clocking in. It drove me crazy. So I just went and told the supervisor every single time she was late, every time she was out of her desk when she was supposed to be there. Just made sure that I, just told my boss everything that she was doing wrong, because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Frank, can you tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker, and how did you handle it?
There's always conflicts on the job, and it's just how you handle those conflicts that's going to be important. And I think that you just have to take that approach that you want to resolve that conflict as best as you can, and make sure that you give a little, take a little, but make sure that the conflict is resolved. And I believe in conflict resolution.
Okay, thank you. Daisy, same question. Can you tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker, and how did you handle it?
Once a coworker and I disagreed on the way an unsatisfied customer was dealt with, I decided to meet with them one-on-one and talk to them to resolve the issue in a peaceful manner, of course. We both agreed that our main goal was to make the customer happy, and we came to a compromise that consisted of both of our ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you. So real quick, I'm about to bring on the other people who just did the mock interview, but I wanted to tell you really quickly, just a very brief evaluation. Frank's answer had a lot of those words, those trigger words that you want to hear, like conflict resolution, and I believe in, settling disagreements, but he didn't give me an answer. So I told him to tell me about a time that he had a conflict and how did he handle it. He didn't answer the question. Josh, I kind of had to pull teeth to get an answer out of him. And then finally, he told me his situation, which was that he was monitoring somebody so much that it sounds like he wouldn't be able to get his own job done. So every time this person was 2 minutes late, he was telling the supervisor. And as a supervisor, that would be very frustrating, because that's your role, is to kind of, be on top of your staff. You wouldn't really want one of your employees to be taking that upon themselves. Daisy's answer, I feel like, was really great, because she said that her and a coworker disagreed on what to do to solve a resolution. To solve the conflict. And so they met privately, and they each kind of heard each other, and then they agreed and they decided to meet halfway. So it sounds like Daisy is the clear winner of round 3 and round 2 and round 1. So let's bring our job developers back on so we can talk to them and see what they think. And we will tell Daisy that, you know, she won. So Josh, right? Daisy, can you guys come back? Hi, Daisy.
Hi.
So congratulations. You are the winner of today's mock interviews.
Hey.
So did you have fun?
Yes, it was a lot of fun doing the mock interviews.
Did you feel nervous?
I was a little nervous being live.
What would you say to a job seeker who's feeling nervous before a job interview? Because they are live in a way.
Yes, that's very true. I think what helps me the most with my nerves is being prepared, practicing interview questions beforehand, practicing doing a mock interview like this with a friend, somebody you're comfortable with. That helps calm my nerves a lot. Maybe pretend, you know, that you're not live.
So Josh, I know that you are a wizard at doing interviews and that we were just, you know, kind of pretending. So what are some of the things that you did to purposely stand out to show what a bad interview would look like?
The first things first, I wasn't ready for the interview. You know, I came, I just have a t-shirt on. My hair's not really done. I didn't shave. I mean, almost nothing, you know, I didn't prepare at all. Of course, this isn't a real background, but I wanted to show that we have to be understanding what's in our background, you know, and there's a blur feature. If you are doing it through Zoom, you know, you can at least try to blur it out. But if it looks anything like this, you're going to be able to tell it's not organized. So just be careful what's in your background. Make sure it's quiet. Make sure your dogs aren't barking, you know, and that you're ready for this interview. I never smiled. I never really listened to what you were saying, you know, just you just got to give it your all. And because it's so hard to do this over the internet and not being able to get all these you know, these feelings and stuff portrayed from you to the employer. But we have to do what we can do right now for some of these employers. But if we just hang in there, and we'll make it happen.
So Frank, I know that one of your answers had to do with your experience. So what would you say would be a helpful tip to somebody who is answering the question, tell me about yourself? What would you say is like more of an answer that you would typically give?
You know, I go with exactly what Josh and Daisy were talking about. Is you want to prepare and not just go in, you know, overly confident that, oh, I got this, you know, it's just another interview. I think you should prepare for every interview. And that question, tell me about yourself, really is going to reflect on your preparation. And even like what I like to do is I like to put an outline that will, you know, highlight some of the bullet points of my experience in education, and then present that as, you know, as a good answer. And so without preparation, I mean, the job seeker, even you may have good answers and use the phrase buzzwords and the things that, you know, you think they want to hear, but really they're going to tell that you're prepared when you go into that interview. They know, and you know.
That's awesome. Daisy or Josh or Frank, do any of you guys have anything that you want to add or ask each other?
I kind of do. Frank just brought something into my mind too. When an employer at the very end of an interview, sometimes you get this bonus, and I love it when they ask this, is, do you have anything else for us or for me? You know, that's your time again right there. Try to visually focus on your resume. Make sure you hit everything, that if you're bilingual, you say that you mentioned all your certifications, that, you know, you portrayed everything, because that's your time to take your about me, you know, tell me about yourself, and rephrase it, and just make sure you hit those points. During that interview, you might get tips. They might say, you know, we're looking for someone to work weekends. Well, you didn't say that you're available all the time yet. So now that's your time to say, I'm available any day that you need me, any times, you know. So don't take that question and say, no, I don't have anything else to say, because you should have something to say. There's always something you can tell these employers.
That's a great point. I love it when an employer will say, so do you have any questions for us? Because it's kind of similar to what you're saying about, do you have anything to add? And so usually I'll say something like, what would be your ideal candidate? And then when they list all the things that they like in a candidate, I can say, well, that's perfect because that's me. I am available to work weekends and I love to work weekends, and whatever they say, you can try to fit your own personality into it. So what about you, Daisy? Is there anything that you want to add or any tips that you have for our job
I
seekers?
just wanted to add to that, when they ask, do you have any questions for us? I always like to ask something like, what's something that makes you happy to come to work every day? Because that lets me know about the work environment and the company culture, and it lets me know if it's somewhere that I really do want to work as well.
That's a great question. I've never heard of that. So what about you, Frank, when they ask you if you have any questions? What do you say?
So basically, you gave a good example because with the ideal candidate, because basically a lot of these employers, it's not only showing, you want to show your interest, not just in the position, but in them. A lot of times in an interview, connection is very important. So whether you're throughout the whole interview, you want to make sure that you are connecting with that employer. So when you're formulating the questions you're going to ask, show that connection. You're genuinely interested in their company, in their position, and you want to be that ideal candidate that they're looking for. And so that was a great example that you gave, Maddison, because it shows connection. I think a big word to remember going into an interview is connection. I want to show them the real genuine person that I am and that I connect with their company.
That's a really good point. You guys, I was going to ask all three of you. So one thing that we just did was like a virtual mock interview. And now that things are opening up, it seems like maybe a lot more interviews are going to be in person. So what do you think some of maybe the questions that job seekers might have about doing in-person interviews versus doing virtual interviews? For example, do I shake hands? Do I go in there and shake hands with the person? Is that weird? Do I, wear a mask? Do I, stay 6 feet away? Do I show them something do I get too close? Like, what do you guys think about doing in-person interviews?
So
Josh?
that would be my very first thing to do is research the company, or when you get that, whether it's a phone call, an email, a letter in the mail saying, come down to do an interview, reply to that and find out what their procedures is with this whole COVID thing. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to show up unprepared. Some places might make you show up, call, and wait outside, until they call you in. So you don't want to be that person just barging through the door and they say, I'm sorry, you have to go back outside. Now you're frustrated. Now you started it off bad already. If you already knew that you're going to have to wait outside, or you're going to go inside and no one's going to shake your hand, you're just going to have to sit by yourself. Like, you're already prepared for that, mentally prepared. So like what Frank always says is prepare for it. You have to prepare for it, and then just go with the flow and don't rush the employers either. We have to understand that they're going through this too. They're just now returning to in-person interviews. So they might be a little nervous. Maybe they're not ready for it yet, so bear with them. I mean, don't take it at heart if it doesn't go right, or if they put you in the wrong room and then now the employer can't find you, and they find you 10 minutes later, just bear with them, because they're learning as well.
That's a really great point. When you said that, it made me think of when you get to be prepared for an interview and rushing employers. And I know this is a little bit off topic, but I just want to hit on it really quickly. I know from an employer standpoint, they like it when you show up early. And it was funny when you mentioned in your interview, I like to be there at 8. But in your interview, I would say don't get there too early, because then you're going to be putting pressure on the employer. For example, they say 15 minutes is a good window, but I've had people come as early as like 45 minutes or an hour early, and then they're just sitting there. And as an employer, you're like, oh, I got to get to them. And you're already kind of causing stress on the employer. So I would say don't get there any earlier than 15 minutes. Do you agree with that? Daisy, do you have any tips?
I think going back to the COVID, or if you don't know what to do when going to an in-person interview, kind of follow their lead. You can tell what their take on it once you're there. Are they wearing masks? Are they open to shaking your hand? Just kind of go with what they're doing. You'll be able to pick up on it if you're watching and observing what's going on in the office. Even before you go into the interview, are the employees outside of the office wearing a mask? What are they doing?
That's really good advice. So I feel like we're just about wrapped up here. Unless there's anything anyone wants to add, I'm going to open it up. Frank, Josh, Daisy, do you guys have anything else that you want to add for our job seekers out there?
I just want to add that now that you're going back, now that we are opening up and things are starting to, become more open in the workplace, keep your passion and your momentum and your genuine smile and everything that is going to connect with that employer, and come prepared. You talked about those interviews now that are in person. I would be prepared with my portfolio. If you're going for, say, a position that's in service or food, be prepared with any certifications you have, food handler certificates. That hasn't changed. You want to come, prepared with your overall career portfolio, resume, and certifications in a nice, neat binder to give to that employer, just to still set yourself apart from the rest. So that's what I would leave as a suggestion.
That's great. Josh?
I think my suggestion would be, don't forget, check on your social media. I know this last year has been difficult. People have had a lot of stuff expressed on their social media account about whether they agree with something or they don't. Make sure you lock down your profile, because that's a free background check for employers. And if you really think that they don't type in your name in Google and pull up your stuff, then you might want to reconsider that, because I guarantee that they do. I mean, I try to make sure mine's all locked down, but I have had people show me like, look, I locked everything down. Well, you did, but you locked it down with friends of friends, which we all know, Kern County, everybody knows everybody. So my friend, I guarantee, is also Frank's friend, who is Madison's friend, and it's going to trickle down, so it's still unlocked. So make sure if you are posting anything questionable or anything, lock it down.
Yeah, or delete it.
Mm-hmm.
Something that reminded me of is sometimes we're very well prepared, we're groomed, we look great, we do great in the interview, but someone sees our car and our car is really, really dirty. That can make an impression on the employer as well. And I think that's something that we sometimes forget, is when you go to an interview, clean your car beforehand in case someone sees it as well.
Yeah, that's true. Especially like when Josh in his mock interview was saying, I'm so organized, and you want this position where you're going to help somebody stay organized, and your job is going to be to keep the office organized. And then they look at your background or your car or your disheveled appearance, and they think, is this person really organized, or are they just telling us that they're organized? Because that's like Frank said, it's a buzzword. I'm organized doesn't mean that you really are. You have to prove it sometimes, right?
Yes. Your actions prove more than your words.
There's actually, Daisy, there's actually, that's such a good point, because there's actually industries that they specifically, while you're interviewing, they will actually go out and look at the applicants' cars just to see how they are, because they say, like, the way you treat your vehicle is the way you're going to treat our vehicles. So that is actually a very good point that I think a lot of times we forget. You're interviewing from the time that you enter into that parking lot, and sometimes even when you're on the road, you don't want to be cutting off the person you're interviewing.
Yeah,
and I can validate that from Frank. That's actually happened to me before. When I showed up for an interview, I got interviewed, I got the job, and then now that I'm working there, I'm watching other people get interviewed, and they actually did go out to the person's car, because this position included a company vehicle that you can take home, you can use on the weekends. They want to make sure you're taking care of their stuff. So they did go and they looked in my windows and looked in the job seekers' windows to make sure it wasn't trash, it's not ripped up or cigarettes everywhere or anything. I mean, it does happen. And also that receptionist, if you're sitting there and your interview's at 9 and it's 9:05, and you're frustrated, you're texting, you're calling, that person is looking at you. And most of the time they have your resume. They might just be making notes on the back saying, man, they were impatient and just sitting there clicking their pen and kept asking me, hey, my appointment's at 9, it's 9:04, what's going on? So be mindful of them too. Like Frank said, pretty much right when you leave your house, you're interviewing until you get back home.
That's a great point. You never know who's watching. I don't know if everyone's heard the story of the person who went to the interview and they had their music up really, really loud. And a gentleman came to them and said, hey, you're in the parking lot, you're hanging out, but can you turn your music down? And they told the guy, buzz off with some, colorful words. Once he went into the interview, he went to shake the person's hand, and it was that old guy who had told him to turn the music down. So you never know, who is, who knows what, or who knows who, or whatever. And one thing though to keep in mind, you guys, is that even if you have the most perfect interview, you're dressed well, you're there on time, you have a great resume, for whatever reason they don't hire you, try not to get discouraged, because sometimes it's not personal, and sometimes you never know what's going on. And you just keep practicing and just keep, getting prepared that not every job is going to be a perfect fit for you. Maybe you are super, super organized and you prove that you're organized, but they're looking for somebody that's kind of like going to laugh with the people and not be organized. This is a terrible example, but I'm just saying you might not be a good fit for their office for whatever reason, but just keep doing what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they may not be a good fit for you.
Yes. Good point. Very good point. They might like things a little bit more loosey-goosey, and you might have, a little bit more structure in the way that you are. And so, yeah, good point. They might not be a good fit for you because you are interviewing them as well, in a way. So, well, I think we're done here, unless you guys want to say anything else. But I hope that all the job seekers learned something. If you have any questions at all, you can always email us. I'm going to put it in the comments, but it's jobfest@kerndhs.com. That's our email address. You can also comment on here. You can send us a message via Facebook. We're all very good at checking the messages. So we're here to help you. We genuinely want everyone to get a job that they love. So like our motto, changing lives one job at a time, like we mean it. So we want to help you. So if you have any questions about our mock interviews, or about resumes, or about, shaking hands, if you, just whatever you need, we're here for you. And we just wanted to make sure that you know that. So that's it.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.